This is Kyle Crawford, and welcome to my channel, Mr. Make It. So, I'm a high school shop teacher, and I thought I'd start a YouTube channel focusing on some of the projects that my students work on and some of the side projects that I complete as well. So the YouTube channel is mainly going to be focused around manual machining, welding, CNC machining, CAD/CAM on Fusion 360, woodworking, 3D printing, pretty much anything making. For my first video, I thought I'd start out with a simple project that could benefit my students. We do a lot of internal threading. I typically let my students use just a general hand tap to do so, but I thought I'd make it a little bit easier for them, create a spring-loaded center for our manual lathe. So a few things that we're going to be referencing throughout this video. I do have a 3D model already built up, as you can see. I also have some 2D drawings with dimensions that I'll be referencing throughout the video. I'm going to post a link to these 2D drawings in the description of the video. You can click on them, use them if you'd like, create your own center. If you don't want to, reference the video and maybe even try Fusion 360 a little bit. So as I said, we're going to be building a 3D model of this. So I'm going to go through some basic Fusion 360 CAD modeling skills. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start a new design. So if you're not familiar with Fusion 360 at all, we do have a little new design button up at the top. Once that loads, we're going to create a sketch. I'm going to create a sketch on one of these planes. I am going to be using some hotkeys. I do show my students some of these hotkeys. It makes drawing a little bit quicker. I will reference how to get to those keys if you're interested. So I'm going to use C for circle. I'm going to draw a 0.5 or half-inch diameter circle. I'm going to stop my sketch, and I'm going to extrude that to 4 inches. So this is the main part of the tube that we're starting here. And if we flip to this side, we're going to create another sketch. Can draw another circle, so C, circle, pick up that center point, and this is going to be a 0.3125 or a 5/16 circle. Stop our sketch. I'm going to extrude this circle all the way back through, grab that arrow, and it's going to cut it out. The next step, we're going to go to the back side. We're going to start another sketch on this plane, and we're going to place a point. So we're going to go under my sketch tools, point, and place a point in the center. We're going to stop our sketch, and we're going to create a hole. I'm going to click on that point, and this hole is going to be tapped. Only 30 thousandths of an inch is going to be tapped. It's going to be a 7/16 by 20 UNF thread. We want the threaded portion of this hole to be modeled. We do want the drill point to show up, and the depth of the hole is going to be 3 inches. So when we go into the shop to make this thing, we're going to use a 25/64 drill bit. We're going to drill in 3 inches, and then we're going to tap the end of this with a 7/16 by 20 UNF tap. So we're going to cut that out. And there we have our tube. So we can see down inside of there, we have a little shoulder. We're kind of looking for that shoulder to make sure that's there. Right. The one thing that I will add to this before we move on to the next part, we're going to create a chamfer on this front edge, 10 thousandths chamfer, 0.01, just a quick edge break. We'll do this on the lathe as well. So a few things. First, I'm going to save this. Try to keep my students up to date on saving. Make sure that they save often. You never know what can happen. We're going to call this spring-loaded center. Save. The next thing we're going to do, this currently is listed as a body. We're going to create several components and assemble them together. So what we do have to do is we're going to click on this little arrow, right click on body 1, create components from bodies. You can see component 1 shows up over here. I like to name my components so that when I have a large assembly of parts, I know what is what. So we're going to double click, and we're going to call this the tube. Don't forget to hit enter, and it's going to name it the tube. So the next part that we're going to be making, if I reference my drawing, is the pin, what I'm calling the pin. It's going to be 2.125 inches long. It's going to have a shoulder that's back 2 inches. It's going to be on this pointed end, right on this chamfered end, it's going to be 5/16. And on the other end, this shoulder is going to be 0.3906. Now, on the manual lathe, more than likely going to be making this on our manual engine lathe. I'm going to play around with the dimensions a little bit to get it to fit inside of that tube and slide really nice. So it might not end up being exactly 0.3906, but it should be fairly close. So what we can do, we're going to start a sketch on this front side of the tube. We're going to create a circle all the way to the inside of this diameter. Stop my sketch. What I can do is I can click extrude, and I'm going to extrude this in 2 directions. We're going to extrude distance 1, it's going to be 1 inch, and distance 2 is going to be 1 inch. Now, what's going to end up happening here is it's going to want to join this pin to the tube. It's going to want to make those one component. We can select new component. That's going to create a completely different new component so that we can assemble these two together. So we're going to click OK. Now, I have my pin, I have my tube. What we're going to do is we're going to hide the tube. So if we go over here to our components, click on this little light bulb, and it's going to hide the tube. I'm going to come to the back side of the pin. We'll create a sketch. We'll draw a circle, 0.3906 in diameter. Stop our sketch. Extrude. And we're going to go 0.125. And that one, we do want to keep it as a join. We want to join it to this pin. Click OK. The only thing left to do on this pin is to create that chamfered edge, that point. So we're going to go here. States that it's a 0.15625 chamfer. So if I go to modify, chamfer, 0.15625. And there we have it. Now we'll go over here, we'll name this pin, enter. Now we'll turn our tube back on. What we're going to do is we're going to assemble these two together right here in Fusion. So if we go to assemble, as built joint, so that is going to assemble two components that were built in place. Now you can use the hotkey for this, which is Shift J. I like to do it Shift J. We're going to click on the pin, we'll click on the tube, and we want this to be a slider. We want this pin to slide in and out of that tube. So I'm going to select the center line of the pin as my sliding axis. And there you go, you can see the animation, it's going to slide. If I click OK, the next thing that we're going to do so that we can showcase this slider motion, we're going to ground the tube. So if I right click on the tube over here on the left, we're going to ground it. That basically solidifies that, holds it down, it cannot move any longer. Now what you're going to see is that the part that can move is going to be the pin, right? So we can slide this pin in and out, just like it would work on the lathe. So the next part we're going to be working on is the end cap. Now in my drawings, I do have referenced a spring that I will be using. I'm not going to model this in the video. It's fairly easy to model this spring in Fusion. It doesn't really offer any benefits in Fusion other than maybe taking up a little bit of space, but we can't compress this spring in Fusion 360, so there's really no reason for us to model it. I know that the length of it, the one that I have, is going to work, so we're going to run with that. So like I said, the next part that we're going to be creating is this end cap. So go back to our model. We're going to create a sketch on this plane right here, on this face. We're going to pick up the center point of this, draw a circle to the outside, stop our sketch. We can then extrude that circle and the inner circle back 0.3 or 300 thousandths of an inch. Now it's going to want to join it like it did earlier to this component. We're going to create a new component instead. Click OK. Now we have part of the end cap started. So if I actually go over and hide the tube, what I can now do is create the shoulder that's going to have our external thread. So if we create a sketch, we're going to start a circle. We're going to go right to this exterior dimension. We're going to stop our sketch, extrude this 0.3 or 300 thousandths. And we do want this one to be a join. We want it to join it to this end cap. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a relief behind the threads. So if we create a sketch, we're going to go to this back side of the end cap. We're going to start a circle. We're going to make this 0.3, 300 thousandths. And we're going to actually extrude this donut right here. We're going to go 0.11. If you look at my drawing, it's going to show that the thread is 0.19, leaving this space in between here as 0.11. We want this to cut, so we can see that this is red. We're going to cut that out of there, creating that relief. We're going to thread this shoulder. So we're going to go to Create, Thread, click this shoulder. It's going to come up as a 7/16 by 20. It's going to be modeled. Should be perfect. We'll click OK. In the drawing, I do have a 10 thousandths edge break chamfer on this back side, 0.01. Looks good. Now the only thing really left to do with this end cap is going to be to create this knurl. So if you take a look, this face right here, this shoulder is going to be knurled, just to give it a little bit of grip as you're trying to tighten it back into the tube. So we can model that knurl. So if we go to Modify, Appearance, all these different materials are going to come up, and we're actually going to go to the the metal material. We're going to go to aluminum, and we can see knurled shows up here. You may have to download this material. I've already pre-downloaded it, so you may have to download this material. If not, we do want to select faces. We're going to knurl this face. So we'll click on aluminum knurled. We're going to hold down and we're going to drag it over to that face. As you can see, that knurl is way too big. So we can scale this back. So we're going to come up here in this design. I'm going to right click, edit. We're going to scale this down until it looks about the appropriate size, and that looks pretty good to me. It's about what I think I'm going to accomplish with our knurling tool on our lathe. Click done, click close. I can turn my tube back on. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to label this component as the end cap. Enter. So now we have our pin, we have our end cap, and we have our tube. So as you can see, we have the complete 3D model. I will click save. And really all that's going to be left is to get in the shop and make this thing. So hope you learned something from this video. Fairly basic Fusion 360 tips from sketching, extrusion, assembly, fairly basic CAD modeling skills. I will try to get into some more advanced stuff as we progress with this channel, but stay tuned. Hopefully you, like I said, hopefully you learned something from this video. Check out the next video that's coming. It's going to be building this thing in the shop. It should be fairly interesting. If you have any comments, questions, please do so in the comment section. Give my page a subscribe and share if you can. Thank you.